John Carter adjusted the collar of his uniform as the screen in front of him flickered to life. Across from him, in a crowded control room at NASA's headquarters, a group of Earth's finest minds buzzed with anticipation. On screen, an image slowly came into focus, revealing a figure not of this world. An ambassador from the Intergalactic Academy, a place where species from across the universe gathered to share knowledge. "Greetings, esteemed humans of Earth." The ambassador's voice resonated, a smooth, flowing cadence that seemed almost musical. "I am Threx of the Zalari. It is with great honor that we extend this invitation to your kind, to send a representative to join the Intergalactic Academy as part of our esteemed exchange program." John glanced around the room. He noticed Dr. Helen Ramirez, the program's lead scientist, scribbling notes furiously. Beside her, Commander Michael Ford, a veteran astronaut, leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Why us, and why now?" Dr. Ramirez asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The control room fell silent, awaiting the alien's reply. Threx nodded, his blue-tinted skin shimmering slightly under the screen's glow. "Humanity has caught the eye of many in the cosmos. Your species' capacity for rapid adaptation and innovation is highly regarded. We wish to understand your kind better." John felt a rush of excitement. This was the kind of adventure he'd dreamed of since joining NASA, a chance to represent his planet and maybe even prove humanity's worth on a cosmic scale. "How will you choose your representative?" Commander Ford asked, his voice carrying a commanding presence. Threx responded, "We trust your methods to select someone suitable. However, we encourage a choice that embodies your species' unique qualities." The transmission ended with a set of coordinates and time for the chosen human to arrive at the Academy. The room erupted into a cacophony of voices as teams immediately began planning logistics. John's mind raced with the possibility of being the one to go. He approached Dr. Ramirez and Commander Ford, who were already deep in discussion. "I want to volunteer," John interjected confidently. "I believe my background in engineering and spacewalks makes me a strong candidate." Dr. Ramirez considered him thoughtfully, tapping a pen against her lips. "John, it's a huge responsibility. You'll be the face of humanity. It's risky." "I understand the risks," John replied. "But think about what we can learn, how much this could advance our understanding of the universe." Commander Ford looked at John with a newfound respect. "He's got guts, I'll give him that. If we're sending someone to make an impression, it might as well be someone who's not afraid to jump into the deep end." Over the next few days, John underwent a series of evaluations, physical, psychological, and intellectual. The final decision came down to a committee vote, but the consensus was clear. John Carter would go to the Intergalactic Academy. As John prepared for the journey, Commander Ford pulled him aside. "Remember, you're not just going there to learn, but also to teach. Show them who we are, and more importantly, make sure you come back with stories to tell." John nodded, feeling the weight of his new responsibility. "I'll do my best, Commander. Humanity has a lot to offer, and I'll make sure they see that." The day of departure arrived, and John stood before the ship that would take him to the Academy. He turned to see Dr. Ramirez and Commander Ford amongst the crowd that had come to see him off. "We're all counting on you," Dr. Ramirez said, offering a tight smile. John grinned back, a mix of nerves and excitement bubbling within him. Next stop, the Intergalactic Academy. With a final wave, he boarded the ship, the hatch closing behind him. As the engines ignited and the ship began its ascent, John felt the adventure of a lifetime had just begun. The starship journeyed through the cosmos, carrying John Carter towards the Intergalactic Academy. The sight of nebulae and distant galaxies through the viewport was breathtaking, but John's mind was preoccupied with thoughts of the challenges that awaited him. After what seemed like an eternity wrapped in solitude and the hum of the spacecraft, John finally arrived at the Academy. The station, a massive structure orbiting a serene blue planet, glittered against the backdrop of space. As John's ship docked, he could barely contain his excitement. He was greeted at the airlock by a welcoming committee, led by a tall, slender being with iridescent skin named Valis, designated as his guide and mentor during his stay. "Welcome, John Carter of Earth. I am Valis from the planet Norid. It is an honor to have you here," Valis said, his voice echoing softly in the corridor. "Thank you, Valis. It's an honor to be here," John replied, following his guide through the sleek corridors of the Academy. As they walked, John observed the throngs of students. They came in all shapes and sizes, from the small, furry creatures that scurried about to the large, imposing figures that seemed to glide rather than walk. Their colors varied as much as their shapes, a vivid tapestry of the universe's diversity. Vallis led John to a large hall where a group of students gathered. This was his first class, an introduction to galactic politics and history. John took a seat among the students, feeling their curious eyes on him. A lanky, green-skinned student named Terrell, sitting next to him, leaned over. "Is it true that humans only have one heart? How do you survive so fragile?" John chuckled. "Well, we manage just fine with one. But yes, it's true. And you are?" "Terrell, from the Zifra system. I've read about humans, but I never thought I'd see one," Terrell replied, his tone a mix of incredulity and fascination. The professor, a wise-looking figure with 4 eyes, began the lecture. The discussion soon steered towards the risk-taking behavior of different species during historical galactic events. John listened intently, and then raised his hand to speak. "On Earth, taking risks is often how we advance. Some of our greatest achievements came from daring to do what seemed impossible." The room fell silent, students and faculty alike turning to stare at him. A murmur ran through the crowd. Vallis, who also attended the lecture, nodded encouragingly at John. Another student, a female with crystalline features, asked, "Could you give us an example? Something real humans have done?" "Sure," John began. "There was a time when humans first decided to send someone to our moon. Many thought it was impossible. The risks were high, but the potential gain in knowledge and achievement drove us to try. And we succeeded, paving the way for our ventures into space." The students whispered among themselves, visibly impressed but also shocked. The concept of risking lives for discovery seemed foreign to many of them. After the class, as John and Vallis walked back to the dormitories, Vallis spoke. "John, your perspectives are intriguing. Here, many species avoid risk to maintain stability. Your approach is refreshing." "I guess that's why I'm here, to share how humans think," John said, looking around at the passing faces of dozens of species. "You will find many eager listeners, John, and perhaps you will learn from them as well," Vallis replied, a smile crossing his features. That evening, as John retired to his room, a small but comfortable space with a view of the stars, he reflected on his first day. It was clear he was not just here to learn. He was here to challenge and perhaps change some long-held beliefs. His journey was not just about representing humanity, but about bridging gaps between vastly different beings. And that realization excited him more than anything. The early days at the Intergalactic Academy blurred into a montage of classes, conversations, and the ceaseless exchange of ideas. John found his groove, engaging with alien students and professors alike, his stories of human exploration and resilience capturing many imaginations. However, the real test of his adaptability, and that of his peers, loomed just ahead. One morning, as John navigated through the bustling corridors, a broadcast echoed throughout the Academy's public address system. "Attention, all students. Please report to the main assembly hall for an important announcement regarding the upcoming field training exercise." Curious, John followed the stream of students to the assembly hall. The vast room filled quickly with the diverse student body, buzzing with speculation. Vallis found John among the crowd, his expression unreadable. "This is your first field training, John. It's unlike anything else in the curriculum. We're going to the Vraxar Expanse," Vallis informed him, referring to a notoriously unpredictable region of space known for its harsh conditions and the complex challenges it presented. The dean of the academy, a dignified figure with a cascade of tentacles, took the stage, commanding silence with a gesture. "This exercise will test your survival skills, decision-making, and ability to work as a team under real pressure. You will encounter various simulations designed to mimic extreme environmental and emergency scenarios. Success will require more than individual bravery. It demands cooperation and ingenuity." The assembly broke into murmurs. John leaned over to Vallis. "Sounds intense. Is it always this serious?" Vallis nodded. "It is. Last year there were injuries. The Expanse is no simulation. It's very real." The next day, equipped with survival gear and briefed thoroughly, John and a mixed group of alien students boarded the transport shuttle. Among them was Terrell, the Zifferan he'd met in class, and Lyra, a bold and outspoken student from a water-based planet. As the shuttle approached the Vraxar Expanse, the scenery shifted dramatically. The stars seemed to dim, and the space around them churned with cosmic storms and debris. The shuttle landed on a designated planetoid, its surface a jagged landscape of ice and rock. "Remember, everyone, stay close and follow the plan," the group leader, a seasoned upperclassman, instructed as they disembarked. The challenges started off manageable, but quickly escalated. A simulated meteor shower forced the team to navigate treacherous terrain. While most students proceeded cautiously, John noticed a shorter path that, while risky, could cut their travel time in half. "Follow me," John called out, dashing towards the shortcut. Terrell hesitated, watching as other students balked at John's boldness. "Are you sure, John? This is against protocol," Lyra called after him, her voice tinged with both concern and admiration. "Trust me," John shouted back, his figure already moving swiftly over the icy rocks. A few, including Terrell and Lyra, decided to follow, inspired by John's confidence. They moved quickly, slipping and sliding, barely dodging large, tumbling rocks. As they reached the other side, a larger rock dislodged above them. John, seeing the danger, pushed Terrell out of the way, taking the brunt of the impact on his shoulder. "John!" Lyra exclaimed, rushing to his side as the dust settled. "I'm okay," John grunted, pain searing through his shoulder but adrenaline keeping him alert. "We need to keep moving." His action and the successful, albeit painful, shortcut garnered mixed reactions. The rest of the group caught up, some praising his quick thinking, others criticizing his disregard for safety. As they set up camp later that evening under the dim light of the expanse's twin moons, John's daring act was the main topic of conversation. "You saved Terrell, but at what cost?" one of the students argued. "It's about making decisions in the moment. Sometimes you have to take a risk," John explained, nursing his shoulder. Lyra nodded in agreement, her earlier reservations giving way to respect. "He's right. Sometimes protocols aren't enough. John showed us that." As they settled down for the night, John lay back, staring at the stars through the transparent dome of their temporary shelter. Despite the pain, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Today, he hadn't just crossed a physical divide, but perhaps he'd begun to bridge the gap between human daring and alien caution. In the weeks following the Vraxar Expanse field trip, John's reputation among his peers underwent a transformation. His audacious move during the exercise became a case study in various classes, discussed and debated from different cultural perspectives. Some students admired his bravery, while others viewed his actions as reckless. Nevertheless, John was becoming a well-known figure within the academy. One afternoon, as John and Lyra worked together in the academy's extensive library on a project about interspecies diplomacy, John stumbled upon a curious set of encrypted files on the library's computer network. They seemed out of place amidst the usual academic databases. "Hey, Lyra, do you know anything about these?" John motioned her over, pointing at the screen. Lyra squinted at the codes and symbols, her brow furrowing. "No, these look encrypted. We should probably report this. It could be sensitive information." But John's curiosity was piqued. "Or maybe it's something the Academy doesn't want us to see. Let's see if we can decrypt it. You in?" Lyra hesitated, aware of the potential consequences. "John, this could get us into serious trouble." John flashed a mischievous grin. "A little trouble can be interesting. Come on, what's the worst that could happen?" After some ethical deliberation, Lyra agreed, and together they worked to bypass the encryption. To their astonishment, the files contained detailed plans and communications about an underground movement within the Academy, led by a dominant alien species known as the Thulians. These plans outlined how the Thulians were manipulating Academy resources to subjugate a less powerful species, the Zyborians, forcing them into unpaid labor on Thulian projects. "This is serious, John. We need to report this now," Lyra insisted, her expression grave. "But who do we trust? If the Thulians are involved, the administration might be too," John argued, his mind racing through scenarios. Deciding to investigate further, John and Lyra cautiously began to gather more information. They reached out to a few trusted Zyborian students under the guise of academic inquiries related to their project. The stories they heard were all too similar: families coerced into dangerous labor, threats against those who spoke out, and disappearances framed as accidents. Armed with this knowledge, John decided they needed more concrete evidence before going public. He planned a covert visit to one of the Thulian project sites, disguised as part of a field study. Lyra reluctantly agreed to cover for him while he was away. Late one night, John set out for the site, located on a nearby moon. The journey was risky, but the shuttle piloting skills he'd honed during his training came in handy. Landing a safe distance away, John made his way to the project site on foot. Using a compact digital recorder, he captured video evidence of Zaborian laborers working under harsh conditions, overseen by Thulian supervisors. As he was documenting, an unexpected patrol forced him into hiding. Breathing heavily behind a storage unit, John watched as the Thulians disciplined a Zyborian worker who had paused to rest. The injustice fueled his resolve. After a tense hour, John made his escape, rushing back to his shuttle with the damning evidence. Upon his return, he showed Lyra the recordings. Her resolve hardened by the undeniable proof, she agreed that they needed to act fast. Together, they compiled the recordings, the decrypted files, and the testimonies they'd gathered into a comprehensive report. "We're going to bring this to the Galactic Council," John determined. "It's time everyone sees what's really happening here." As dawn broke over the Academy, John and Lyra prepared to disrupt the cosmic balance of power, unaware of the chain of events they were about to unleash. John and Lyra spent restless nights compiling all the evidence they had gathered into a detailed report. Their plan was to present it to the Galactic Council, an assembly composed of representatives from various species which oversaw matters at the Academy. They hoped the council would be a neutral party, unaware of the Thulian schemes. But as they prepared to make their move, they sensed an increasing level of surveillance around them. Unmarked drones began to appear frequently near their living quarters and in their classrooms. Someone was keeping a very close eye on their activities. "It seems we've caught someone's attention," John noted dryly as they walked to class one morning, a drone hovering discreetly behind them. Lyra glanced nervously at the drone. "We need to be more careful. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone involved, especially the Zyborians." Determined to proceed despite the risks, they sought an appointment with the council under the guise of discussing an interspecies integration initiative. The meeting was scheduled quickly, a testament to the council's interest in student-led initiatives, or perhaps due to the unseen influence keen on understanding John and Lyra's intentions. On the day of the meeting, John and Lyra entered the council chamber, a vast circular room lined with holographic displays of the galaxy. The members of the council, an eclectic mix of beings from across the universe, greeted them with a mixture of curiosity and formality. "We come before you today to discuss a matter of urgent importance," John began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "What we are about to reveal involves not just a violation of Academy standards, but a serious abuse of power and exploitation." Lyra then took over, expertly navigating through their presentation, showing the encrypted files, the testimonies from the Zyborian students, and finally, the video evidence John had captured. Murmurs filled the chamber as the council members absorbed the shocking revelations. However, instead of the immediate action John and Lyra hoped for, the council chair, a venerable, four-armed Grantarian, paused thoughtfully. "This is a serious accusation. We must investigate these claims thoroughly before we can take any action. It is also a matter internal to the Thulian sector. We must tread carefully to respect their sovereignty." Frustrated but undeterred, John replied, "With all due respect, these actions affect more than just the Thulian sector. They undermine the very principles this academy stands for." The council agreed to a recess to consider the evidence further, promising to reconvene soon. As John and Lyra left the chamber, they felt the weight of bureaucratic inertia starting to cloud the hope they had felt. Their return to the dormitory was quiet until they were suddenly intercepted by Threx, the Zalari ambassador who had initially invited John to the academy. "I have been watching your progress, John Carter," Threx said, his tone unreadable. "You have stirred quite the nest. Why expose these matters to the council? There are other ways, less disruptive ways." "We thought it was right to go through official channels," John explained, unsure of Threx's stance. "We're talking about exploitation and injustice. It seemed like the council should know." "Naive," Threx shook his head. "But brave. I must warn you, the Thulians will not take this lightly. You have made enemies today, but perhaps you have also made some unexpected allies." With those cryptic words, Threx left them, disappearing as silently as he had appeared. As John and Lyra contemplated his warning, it became clear that their battle was just beginning. They had indeed made enemies, but they hoped their actions would rally others to their cause. That evening, as the academy buzzed with whispered discussions about the day's events, John and Lyra prepared for whatever came next. They knew they had set in motion a series of events that could change the academy forever, but they also knew they could no longer turn back. The atmosphere at the Intergalactic Academy had shifted palpably since John and Lyra presented their findings to the Galactic Council. word of their accusations against the Thulians spread like wildfire, igniting a series of debates and confrontations among students and faculty alike. The academy, once a beacon of unity and learning, now felt like a battleground of ideologies and loyalties. Days turned into weeks as the council deliberated. Meanwhile, John and Lyra continued their daily routines under the watchful eyes of both supporters and detractors. The increasing tension was almost tangible, pressing down on them with an intensity that was hard to bear. Finally, the council reconvened to deliver its verdict. John and Lyra, along with a sizable contingent of students, including many Zyborians, gathered in the council chamber. The chamber was filled to capacity, a sea of faces from countless different species, all waiting anxiously for the decision. The council chair, the Grantarian, spoke first. After careful consideration and investigation of the evidence presented by the students John Carter and Lyra of Noride, we find substantial merit in their claims. There appears to be a concerted effort by certain Thulian factions to exploit Zyborian labor unjustly. The announcement caused a stir among the audience, but the chair raised his hands for silence. However, this council cannot intervene directly in the internal affairs of the Thulian sector without further diplomatic discussion. We recommend a special committee to explore solutions that respect both Zyborian rights and Thulian sovereignty. Dissatisfied murmurs echoed around the room. John stood up, his voice cutting through the din. Respectfully, sir, while we understand the need for diplomacy, immediate action is required to prevent further exploitation. Every day we delay, Zyborian lives are being put at risk. Lyra stood beside him, adding, "We implore the council to consider temporary measures to protect the Zyborians until a long-term solution is negotiated." The council murmured amongst themselves before the chair responded, "Your concerns are noted, and this council admires your advocacy. We will take your suggestions into consideration and expedite our discussions." The meeting adjourned with no definite resolution, leaving a bitter taste in many mouths. John and Lyra, frustrated but undeterred, knew they had to keep pushing. Over the next few days, they organized meetings and forums within the academy, rallying support for the Zyborians. Their efforts were met with enthusiasm from many, though threats and warnings from Thulian sympathizers became increasingly aggressive. One evening, as John returned to his dormitory, he was ambushed by a group of masked figures. They warned him to cease his activities, emphasizing their point with a show of force that left John bruised but resolute. Shaken, but not deterred, John's resolve only strengthened. "They're scared," he told Lyra afterward. "They wouldn't be trying to intimidate us if we weren't making an impact." Empowered by his determination, they planned a large-scale demonstration to coincide with the next meeting of the council. As the day approached, their movement grew, gaining momentum not just within the academy, but also among various sectors that had caught wind of the struggle. On the day of the demonstration, a massive crowd gathered, a vivid mosaic of species standing together in solidarity. John and Lyra led the march, their voices amplified by the crowd, their message clear and potent. As they reached the council building, the crowd filled the great plaza, their chants echoing off the walls. The council members, faced with this overwhelming show of unity and support, realized the gravity of the situation. They called an emergency session to readdress the issue. With the eyes of thousands upon them, the council finally voted to implement protective measures for the Zyborians while the committee continued its work. It was a partial victory, but a victory nonetheless. John and Lyra, standing before the crowd, felt a surge of accomplishment. Together, they had ignited a movement that transcended planetary and species boundaries, a testament to the power of unity and the relentless pursuit of justice. Following the council's decision to implement temporary protective measures for the Zyborians, the atmosphere at the academy was charged with a mixture of triumph and tension. John and Lyra's successful demonstration had proven the power of collective action, but it also marked a clear line in the sand between the factions within the academy. The Thulians, feeling cornered and scrutinized, were not about to let this challenge to their authority go unchallenged. Covertly, they began to rally their allies, preparing for a more direct confrontation. The stakes were higher than ever, and the academy, once a place of learning and diplomacy, braced for conflict. John, aware of the brewing storm, organized a series of strategy meetings with Lyra and their closest allies. They needed to be ready for whatever came next. Their network had grown, including many other species who believed in their cause, each bringing unique perspectives and resources to the table. "We need to be proactive," John declared during one of the meetings. We can't just wait for the Thulians to make their move. We've got to strengthen our defenses and keep pushing for more permanent solutions. Lyra, always the strategist, nodded in agreement. Let's also work on securing more support from external bodies. If we can show that this is not just a local issue but a galactic concern, we might sway more opinions in our favor. As tensions escalated, minor skirmishes broke out around the Academy. Thulian agitators clashed with protesters, leading to a crackdown by the Academy's security forces. The administration, overwhelmed by the scale of the unrest, found itself unable to maintain order as lines were drawn. One evening, as John returned from a negotiation session, he was ambushed by a Thulian hit squad. Armed and dangerous, they were clear in their intentions to end his interference. What they hadn't anticipated was John's preparedness. Having learned from previous threats, he had taken to wearing a discreet armored vest and carrying a stun device. The ambush turned into a scuffle, and although outnumbered, John managed to escape, leaving his attackers reeling. This incident marked a turning point, galvanizing his supporters into forming a more organized resistance. They weren't just fighting for the Zyborians anymore. They were fighting for the soul of the Academy. The conflict came to a head when the Thulians seized control of a critical Academy communication hub, intending to cut off the Resistance's ability to coordinate. Recognizing the severity of this move, John led a daring operation to reclaim the hub. The battle was fierce, with both sides suffering casualties. Using a combination of human ingenuity and the diverse capabilities of his allies, John's team managed to retake the hub, securing a vital victory. In the aftermath, the Academy's administration was forced to call for peace negotiations. The ongoing violence was doing irreparable harm to the institution's reputation and its ability to function. The negotiations were tense, with John and Lyra representing the resistance. Facing them across the table were senior Thulian representatives and mediators from neutral species. After hours of heated debate, a treaty was drafted, offering comprehensive protections for the Zyborians and establishing a new oversight committee to ensure such abuses would never happen again under the Academy's watch. As the treaty was signed, John felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The war had taken its toll, and while they had achieved their goals, it had changed the Academy forever. The victory was bittersweet, but it was a testament to what could be achieved when different beings united for a common cause. In the quiet aftermath, as the Academy began the process of healing and rebuilding, John and Lyra looked out over the campus. The battle scars were visible, but so was the new spirit of cooperation and understanding that had begun to take root. "This is just the beginning," John said, his voice low but hopeful. "We've shown what's possible. Now we have to ensure it lasts." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the stars above. "We will," she promised. "Together." In the wake of the peace treaty, the Intergalactic Academy slowly began to recover from the upheaval. The newly established Oversight Committee took shape, with John and Lyra actively involved in its formation and proceedings. The committee was not just a regulatory body, but a symbol of the new era of transparency and justice the Academy was striving to uphold. The treaty's effects were profound. The Zyborians, liberated from their forced labor, started to receive compensation and public apologies from Thulian leaders. This restoration of dignity was a significant victory, and the Academy's halls buzzed with discussions about the new precedent that had been set. Across the cosmos, news of the Academy's conflict and its resolution spread, inspiring other oppressed groups to seek similar justice. John, whose term at the Academy was nearing its end, prepared for his return to Earth. His experiences had transformed him from a curious student into a galactic diplomat and a seasoned leader. The farewell ceremony was a grand affair, attended by representatives from numerous species, many of whom had stood by his side during the conflict. Valis, who had first welcomed John to the Academy, stood at the podium. "Today, we gather not just to say farewell to John Carter, but to honor him. John, you came to us as a student, but you leave as a hero and a true friend to many. Your courage has changed this Academy and indeed the galaxy for the better." John stepped forward, receiving accolades and tokens of appreciation from various species, each gift symbolizing unity and respect. As he looked around the room, filled with faces both alien and familiar, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment and camaraderie. Lyra, standing beside him, handed him a small, intricate device. "This is a communicator, tuned to frequencies we use here. Wherever you are in the galaxy, you'll be able to reach us." John clasped the device, feeling the weight of the connections he had forged. "Thank you, Lyra. I'm taking a piece of the Academy with me, but leaving a big part of my heart here. The celebration continued into the night, with stories shared, laughter echoing through the halls, and plans for future collaborations discussed. When the time came for John to board the shuttle back to Earth, a crowd accompanied him to the launch pad, their faces a mosaic of the diverse Academy community. As the shuttle ascended, John watched the Academy shrink away, a jewel against the backdrop of stars. His thoughts turned towards home, towards Earth, where he was eager to share his experiences. The knowledge and insight he gained were not just his to keep, but his to spread, in hopes of fostering greater understanding and cooperation between humans and the myriad species of the galaxy. Landing back on Earth was surreal. The familiar sights and sounds of his home planet were both comforting and strangely distant after his time among the stars. As he reunited with his family and friends, he recounted his tales, each story a testament to the resilience and unity he had witnessed. John's journey, which began with an invitation to learn, had evolved into a mission to teach, not just at the Academy, but back home on Earth. He worked to establish more robust relations between Earth and the intergalactic community, leveraging his experiences to advocate for a seat for humanity on the Galactic Council. As he settled into his new role, John often looked up at the stars, reminded of the adventures and friendships that had shaped him. The communicator Lyra had given him was always close by, a reminder that while he was grounded on Earth, his reach was galactic. He was ready for whatever new challenges awaited, confident in the unity and shared purpose that bound him to friends and allies across the stars.